My name's Richard Jones. I'm a publisher at Tangent Books in Bristol, which specialises in counterculture, music, art, politics, mainly related to Bristol. And I was the music editor for the Bristol Evening Post between 1986 and about 1992. So the track I've chosen is Psych Out by the Sears, and the reason I've chosen it is because the Sears were one of my favourite bands at this time. I wrote a lot about them for the Evening Post, saw them play live a lot. But the reason I particularly like this track is I actually saw the Sears perform it live in a rehearsal room for one of the first times I played it. It was the rehearsal rooms at the Moon Club in just off Stokes Croft, St Paul's, and I was fortunate enough to have a private audience. I went to interview them and they played this track, and it's a moment which has always stayed with me because it was so powerful. It's a really great track. It's got that sort of summer of love, psychedelia in it. It's a great guitar track. It's got the funkadelic samples of Free Mind, The Ass Will Follow. It really is indicative of a lot that was going on at that time. And one thing which struck me at the time was, because it was obviously unmixed, it was just a live performance in a rehearsal room, was that Adrian Blackmore, Age, the drummer who came from a punk background, but also a really sort of funky drummer. And his drum performance was trance-like. It was absolutely astonishing. And Jason, the bass player, and Age were a fantastic rhythm section, which is something which doesn't really come out so much on the finished recording, which interests me as well, because I felt they never quite captured on record the raw energy which they had as a live band. They very much came, like a lot of the Bristol bands from this era, from the punk roots. And that punk energy is something which I think defines not just the Sears, but a lot of the bands of the time. But also that spilled over into hip-hop as well, strangely, which was obviously starting to form into Smith and Mighty and Massive Attack and Carlton and other more sort of dance and electronica acts at the time. I think that this the influence of punk on all of these is there, and there's something to do with the attitude, the DIY attitude, which became so important in Bristol. Certainly the Sears, they encapsulate that. But the whole thing about the kids setting up the house parties and the illegal parties and getting the sound systems in and doing their own thing, was really, really important to the development of Bristol music, both in terms of the influences, but I think more so in not having boundaries, not doing as they were told, not obeying a particular format, which made them not that easy for the record companies to sign. But Bristol Music did their own things, and I think the Sears were one of the bands which exemplified this attitude. It didn't do them any good because they didn't get signed to a major label. They did sign a fairly big record deal. Like many bands at the time, it went wrong, and they never fulfilled their potential. And the list of bands from this period who could have done so much better there are many of them, whether it's Onslaught or the Crazy Trains or the Cortinas, or even the Pop Group, who are hugely influential but never really achieved the crossover success. The Pop Group would never go into, I don't think, because their music is so radical in every way. It's never going to have a mainstream audience. But a lot of these bands, they were tremendously good. They lasted 3 or 4 years at the most, and then they couldn't really progress their careers any further because, in my view, they weren't prepared to compromise the music.